so following the traditional proposal format, and really nailed down, like we need to be almost flawless in terms of like what we're asking for and what we're going to execute on. And so how much money we're going to ask, let's justify the amount of money we're asking for, and how do we manage expectations from the community? Because right now we want to be incremental in our gains. We want to get this process done right, and then we can look for bigger gains later on, in my opinion. And I mean, if anybody has any opposing arguments to that or ways we should move, I think that this is a good time to talk about it. But I think that in terms of priorities, it's the proposal. We need to get this proposal written and ready, and we can talk about the details and hash that out within the coming week. But does anybody have any thoughts on how we should approach the proposal, or the amount of funds we're going to be asking for, and or types of platforms that we want to use?
Yeah, I would just say that this, what you're saying, Nate, maybe just making a list, like kind of like brainstorming the different things that we need to actually nail down for the proposal. I think that would be something worth doing.
Yeah, and so like I think the big ones, the big things that we need to figure out are, one, the multi-sig. Okay, who's on it, who's controlling it, and
like the multi-sig can be like the people who execute, and it can be like 3 people or something, but then always like when finish the process and all the money to the agent. I think that should be a thing.
Yeah,
I don't think the money should be held in a multi-sig. Like it's good, it's okay, like a multi-sig do the transactions, but at the end of the process, like the money should be on the agent. Like we are talking like about big pool of the money. So that's the
So-
difference of centralized DeFi or decentralized.
Yeah, and so the alternative to not having a multi-sig is that we allocate small amount of funds to individual fund managers. And so let's say, Zepti, we want you to handle the year-end finance of just these stablecoin interest rates, maybe on Curve or something. And we'd allocate to you a small amount of money, say $10,000 or something. Now, if we do this route, we have to have some type of accountability. And so the only way I can think of this happening and making sure that we have this transparency around it is to say, I don't know if anybody knows of any type of platform that offers like a staking slashing as a service, where you stake some of your funds that you have, say an equivalent amount and or slightly less. That says, hey, okay, now if you take this money, we can slash your funds and take it and put it back into some central treasury. But outside of that, I don't see how we can do this without a multi-sig. You know what I'm saying? Like, is there an other alternative besides that you were thinking of?
No, I think like we could use the multi-sig, but when when things are done, just like if you make an LP and just take it with the multi-sig, that's good. But then send the rights to the agent.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if you can take this down though, Gideon, in terms of, I kind of want to go over like the fundamental like points that we need to solve before we move forward. And I think the multi-sig is one of them. What platform we're using. So right now, most of DeFi is going to be accessible to us without having to operate interchain. And so interchain movement is another one. So we have to figure out how we do that, the process for interchain movements, from XDAI to Ethereum to Optimism, if we want to go layer 2 and save on gas fees. These are important questions to have that'll really help with minimizing the cost of managing these funds. And then we have, outside of the interchange, what we use for. So Curve and Balancer are the two main DeFi platforms that are being utilized. I mean, even Yearn uses Curve for everything. If you're talking about yields and generating yield from LP. And so those are the two platforms that I think that are most reliable. And so Yearn can be used for Curve, but those are the two that we need to evaluate, in my opinion. If anybody else has any other platforms they want to explore, I think that could be a topic for what we go through. The other aspect of it is how we manage the returns. So what exactly are we funding? How much of the percentage goes back into our multi-sig, what percentage goes to the common pool, what percentage goes to buying back TEC tokens. Like how do we strategize the use of the returns that we do generate? I think that is really important to convey to the community. So if we say, okay, we've made $5,000, what percentage of that is going to the common pool? What percentage of that do we want to use for TEC buybacks and send it to the reward system team? Yeah, so we have to have a conversation about how we're going to use these gains and what they're going to fund. And then I think the last part is just how do we provide ultimate transparency over all of these processes? So yeah, I think those are the main points that we really need to hammer out for this proposal to be executed on, and I think we should start with those types of things. So I don't know.
So
I think like for transparency is easy. Like everything is on the blockchain. The only thing we need to do, like if we want to be the data more accessible to the people, we could do a report. That's simple. And then for the for buying back TC, I think it'd be nice if we just put all the money into the common pool and then we decide, like token holders decide, like the rewards needs money, so the rewards just make a proposal on conviction voting and then boom, that's it. So I really think like we should keep it as simple as possible.
Or whether it's reinvested. I mean,
Yeah, of course. Like what
you want
I
some
was
sort of compounding potentially. To me, what but sorry, Septi, I'm like talking over you. But to me, what has me kind of most cautious about this is that, like, you can sort of model what sort of APY you're going to get, right? Because I assume you're not going to go in any risk beyond like strong like farming protocols, so from that you can sort of like take a guess at what the profits of this group are going to be and how much you'd need as a result, because you're going to have some fixed costs and there'd be no point in running the group if it's not going to like create profit, right? So there's a minimum amount of money you're going to need in order to kind of make it self-sustaining.
And I was running some numbers, and I came to like around 150,000 if we're going to do this the right way, if we're going to make any type of legitimate gains from that. So
sorry, Nate, you mean we would have to invest 150,000?
yeah, we'd have to request about 150,000 if we wanted to generate enough yield to actually fund or to see the returns that we want to see. And that's asking for that amount of money. We need to make sure that we have everything hashed out before then. But we're also on a time crunch, so I think the decision makings that we have here are very important, and that we really should, at this group especially, should really be focusing on this upcoming 2 weeks.
So one other thing that I've been thinking about with this is it's almost like a wrapper proposal or maybe we just attach this to every specific proposal. But I feel like we need some type of kind of general policy about investing TEC funds regarding things like risk. Also, for example, this is what made me think of it is pulling 150K out of the common pool is not going to be easy at this point. I'm not even sure, like, I'm not even sure. We would have to, it would be pretty tough. So you'd either have to spend, what's that?
Double voting. You need 80% quorum, 10%, 10% quorum, 80% support requirement. Like it should be, like any snapshot vote we do in the community that passes, the same requirements, basically.
Yeah, but this will be through conviction voting, and yeah, it'll still be challenging, right? Like it's not through conviction.
I think it should be like a top voting, like conviction voting. It's not going to pass. Like no way, impossible.
Okay.
Yeah,
unless you have like multiple proposals. But I think this is a top voting decision.
And I do think the community is going to require us to make it like a small, say like $10,000, and just prove that we can do this process and show them that exactly this is how we do it. This is how it's managed. This is how we're going to operate. Because there's a lot of like minute decisions, like the gas costs themselves are going to be insane, and so I honestly think moving to a layer 2 on Ethereum is probably the best route for us to go. But yeah, go ahead, Mert.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, for example, what will be the sole source of like initial liquidity? Will it be just only common pool? I was remembering Griff were suggesting maybe we can like as a community members can crowdfund this manager money, then we can do like degen to regen stuff. So if, for example, if you put 2% of the initial liquidity as an individual, you can get back from 2% of the profits, kind of thing. So it can help us to increase liquidity size at the beginning, but that's a lot of like question arising for regarding that. So is it like, should we how much each person can put in, whom do we trust, like should can we see invest in our funds, etc. So it's like too many questions, maybe, I don't know, for the initial step. But it's just, I want to ask, like, what do you guys think regarding
So this
creating
is kind
this
of
sort of
like
crowdfund stuff?
a crowdsourcing investment capital, and then saying if you're value aligned and you want to help out, we can split the gains from this.
Yeah, like for example, if I believe TC's fund is good, and I want my money to be like invested, I can just put into TC treasury managers, and if you gain 2%, I can get the 1%, and common pool get the 1% from my initial liquidity. So this can help me personally, and this can help the treasury. So, and also it will make easier to collect initial liquidity. So
I think that's an
This is
amazing idea to get
it's awesome.
capital, but it introduces a lot of liability in terms of like having participants that we would not normally have within this type of group, who are demanding us to have managing their expectations of returns, and saying, oh, there's even smaller room to screw up, or even smaller room to have a down market, and have to uh, you know I
I
don't know,
mean,
just kind of
it,
manage different people who aren't necessarily part of the community. But
but it will not be
that's my concern.
it's not free risk. Like people know when they put the money on someone managing it, it's half risk, right?
Yeah, but
Like,
it could tarnish it, like the taking the risk could tarnish TEC in general. If we have this collective pool of funds that a bunch of people are expecting to see returns from, and then we lose that money, or they don't get the returns that they want, then all of a sudden TEC is to blame, and all of a sudden we have a kind of a PR nightmare, which is, yeah. Go ahead.
All right.
So yeah, like my counter argument to this will be, first, I think we won't play like very risky, like very degenerate plays, because the common pool is like a pool that people get funded through as like their means of living. So probably we won't go very crazy about like yields and degening. So probably the chance of risk is considerably lower. And if you know it, as Zepti said, like there is always risk, even if you control by yourself. I know this can create some PR, like this can create some like public relationship problems. But I mean, at the end, we should consider the pros and cons. I believe the like the possibility of cons are much lower, and also maybe if you want, we can create some sort of like reputation stuff for you to fund. Maybe you should be part of the community if you want to invest this fund. But it's again a problem, like who is the part of community, like am I part of community, or like stewards are part of community, or like a person who just contributed to the TC, is he part of the community? So that's again problem. But my perspective is that we should allow anyone who wants to support token engineering commons and have liquidity to participate this action.
Yeah, I also want to add, like, if we fail on on this treasury management, it doesn't matter if we fail with common pool funds or other people. Like, it will be a bad stage for the TC anyway. So I think it's worth the risk.
Also, I would just like to say I feel like the idea has been tracking a lot of energy, like since the forum post and now here in the call. What I would like to kind of like take a step back and see like of the whole situation of the TC, and maybe it would be worth to do some cost benefit analysis of this idea, and see if it's really viable and if it's truly gonna bring the benefit we think it's gonna bring to the TEC. Because right now I'm thinking, with what Nate was mentioning about having to invest probably around 150k to generate meaningful yield, couldn't we maybe invest those 150k into actual products and services and other initiatives in the TEC that are more aligned to what we are building and what we're doing, instead of risking them and not being really sure what's going to happen with those funds, and maybe also kind of like losing track in our way. I feel like the TC has a mission, and our main focus should be to deliver on that mission. And I feel that these resources maybe could be better used somewhere else. But again, I feel that the idea it's tracking a lot of energy, so maybe that's also for a reason. I just throw that out, like this cost benefit analysis of the idea against maybe investing the money somewhere else.
Actually, I'd like to add on to that point, because I think there's another factor too. Like, if we pull 150k out, let's say we're able to do that, that will accelerate the making it much harder to pass anything else in the conviction voting. Probably good, actually, to do that. Like, that would actually accelerate slowing down TEC spending. So that's probably a good thing. But I actually, what Bear's talking about resonates with me. It's like, my sense is if we were to take the 150k and invest it in something that really, could generate some value for the TEC, that's probably a better investment. But maybe what we're talking about is, we don't know what those plans are yet. We're still formatting those plans. So it's like thinking about this really from like a portfolio management perspective of like, we've got free cash right now. We've got cash that's not working for us. And so if we think about how do we use this cash for periods of time when we're not putting it to work with our own TEC investments, and then like really managing it from that perspective of like, well, we know that for the next 6 months, this is 150k that we just want to sock away, make it harder to do conviction voting, slow down our spending, and then get it back in 6 months. I don't know, I'm just making that up, but do you understand what I'm saying? It's like thinking about these funds as cash that we can invest while it's not being used, and then be able to get it back when we really do need it.
I agree with that 100%. And the thing is that right now we're feeling a lot of pressure from the community to actually make money off of this type of treasury management approach. And Trent made that statement of go get money, but like this takes time, and I feel like if we rush it, we are going to fail. And having a treasury, this is something that's just inevitable. The TEC will have a treasury. And we'll have these types of funds invested, but we've got to make sure we do it right. And if we keep having these pressures from the outside to do this quickly, I think it's going to be really difficult for us to perform well. And I don't know what we can do in order to like mitigate that, but I think it's really important that we do. Yeah, Mert.
Yeah, I agreed. So, for example, what about what Beer said, like the sitting amount may not generate like lots of revenue, but at the end it's sitting. So we were having same discussion with Mike from LTF in proposing inverter. Like there's some fund sitting in proposals like our treasury, what we can do, and he was planning to like introduce some like treasury management strategies, some legal bearing tokens, and all those other stuff that we can play around. And it may not create like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it may create some sort of little and meaningful revenue, which will be better than sitting amount. And if we can manage the risk good enough, I think it won't hurt the common pool, because I think we won't go, at least from my perspective, we shouldn't go so risky. So, and the from my like, I'm not super like experienced in treasury management stuff, but as far as I see, with this lower risk approach, people make some money, which is not like super big, but can be meaningful. For example, can fund one proposal in some for 3 months for like 16K proposal can be funded by this management stuff, which will be positive impact at the end.
Yeah, and I think, I was looking at the different opportunities for that, and like Balancer, for example, has this 50/50 pool with ETH and USDC, and I do think that's a really and it offers 13%. And I think that just having it sit there, half of it in stablecoin and half of it in a very underappreciated asset at the moment, and that can appreciate over time, is really really good proposition right now. And that way we have 50% of it is in stablecoin that we can guarantee that is not going to be lost, and 50% in an asset that we probably all universally believe is going to appreciate in the next year and a half. I think is really an enticing option. However, I do think there's a lot of things that we as a group right now have to figure out. And so I think trying to figure out how we go about incrementally knocking these things out in terms of not only formulating this proposal, but how do we manage decision making within this fund? Who's able to do these things? Are we capable of doing it? Because like I said, I've tried using the Gnosis multisig interface with these DeFi protocols, and it's just not there yet. And so that's a huge challenge in a lot of ways. So I don't know.
Hey, one thing so I just want to pick up on, because we've got 25 minutes left on this. I want to pick up on the thing you said earlier, Nate. What if we did just like 10K, right? But the real focus, 10K in the beginning, right? And we try to get this done in the next couple weeks, right? But the real focus of that 10K investment is, like you said, it's to prove that we know what the hell we're doing, like figure out what the logistics of it are in a way where there's not that much at risk. But the thing that we're really doing is we're actually putting together a policy that's like the wrapper policy, that's like, here's how, here's the risk tolerance we're going to take with, it's like a philosophical proposal with a little bit of money attached to it. And what we're trying to do is show the community is like, here's what we're thinking about the general philosophy and the general policy that we want to take for treasury management. And if you agree, then, support this 10K experiment that we'll do over the next, we'll run for, I don't know how long, like 3-4 weeks, and then follow up with like a bigger proposal for more funding. How does that land?
I think that's, yeah, go ahead, Mert.
Sorry, Nate, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that's the best way. That's the next step we do. Yeah, for sure. I think we start incremental and show that we know how to do this process, and we hash out all the difficult decision makings that we have to have in order for this to be successful. And then we expand it from there. And I would even include, like Mert, your idea of like the crowdsourcing thing. Even if it starts off like, have you ever used the PyDAO, their index tokens? And maybe having kind of like a regen, see if we can at least solicit participants to participate in like creating like an index of like refi tokens and see how that goes, and maybe even kind of have these different branches where we start exploring different ways of doing this. But yeah, it really comes down to hashing out these like minute details, and that's something that we may have to focus on, even like just having more meetings and or having the shared document and really focusing on it, because this is going to take some focus for all of us, and we really need to be committed to it.
Just, I think Gideon, that's very good idea, and it may show communities. We can do that stuff, but I think what is missing in this thing is like who, like the very fundamental question of like who will do this management stuff. Like, for example, like you know, the treasury management is like very specialized, very skill based thing. Like as I said, like while we were discussing with Mike like 2 days ago, he was showing me how to do convex finance and wrap it up in yearn and go into curve again and borrow all those degening stuff. And I'm not as good as him. And probably if I do the same stuff for like same funds, he will like perform much better. Of course, uh, like I don't suggest that we should just let one kind of quote unquote expert to do all the things, but like I think we should figure out like who will be responsible of having some decision that may be checked and balanced by the community itself. But I think in this picture what I see missing is like who will, like for example, who will be deciding that okay, we will just go and borrow on curve and go to convex and do the voting escrow thing or whatever strategy they want to use. Like who will be deciding, who will we trust as expert of those kind of things? Like I know that I'm not this person.
Yeah, and there are very few people who are capable of doing that, to be honest with you. I think that if somebody does do that with these funds, they would be a very small percentage of the overall funds that we do ask for from the common pool to be in these like high risk, aggressive investment strategies where you say, okay, we're going to give you free reign, but I still don't see how that's possible. You know, like I said, the most ideal would be to have a multi-sig where we have a kind of a board that says, okay, we're going to make this decision and we all sign off on that decision within on-chain. But as I said before, if you go to Gnosis multi-sig and interact with the interfaces of these DeFi dApps, it's nearly, you know, it doesn't have the full functionality. And so we really need to really explore this fundamental space. Yeah.
Yeah, and also Nate, like what I mean with these aggressive strategies, of course, like we like if it's a common pool and we know the main purpose of this common pool, so probably most of the strategies will be around like stable farming and all those other things that will be like sorry, so it will be mainly based on like stable farming, very low risk, probably 80% of the funds. But maybe for like 10% and other things, they can do aggressive stuff or whatever they believe the treasury management strategy they should pursue in at the in the lights of our perspective that we will bring to this treasury manager. Like we will say, okay, this is wage money, you should not be risky, whatever, and then we will give some ideas, and the treasury strategist, let's say, will create probably a strategy in the midst of these discussions. So I mean, yeah, of course, like we won't go very, probably we shouldn't go very aggressive. I totally agree. I just want to make my point.
Yeah, and I think I would love to have that kind of feature for somebody to be able to do that. I think the trust thing is really the hardest part. How do we trust this person's not going to use this capital and just make money and then take it and not send it back to the thing? So you need to have somebody who's very trustful, and or we need to have some type of staking slashing mechanism. And so I don't know if like Longtail Financial or anybody else in the space knows of a stake slash as a service, but I think it's really, really important to have that type of feature. If you were to have this type of aggressive investment strategy where somebody is actively managing day-to-day transaction to transaction, keeping an eye on things, wanting to do arbitrage, wanting to do all these different things. Right now, like my thing is like, let's do, you know, set APY of 12%, find liquidity pool, half of it stables, half of it a blue chip token that we know is going to appreciate, and just let it sit there for a minute, and let's talk about how we can expand the infrastructure that will enable us to do more in the future.
Okay, I think NT was trying to make a point.
Yeah, I have a couple of things to say. First of all, I think the most probably the first thing we should be looking for is like a probably like something like a common definition of risk tolerance or something like that, because I think that's going to influence all the other decisions, like say the multi-sig setup, or however we decide to manage the funds. Um, because like I think it was Angela a few weeks ago that said that it's quite hard to have to be controlling a fund if you have to wait for people to sign in, right? And so I guess if we just do stablecoin farming on Aave or something like that, it's pretty straightforward. We can use a multisig, but as the strategies become more risky, it's going to be harder to to make proper decisions with a multisig. That's one. Then about the first proposal of asking for say 10K, I think that's cool, but I think there's like we can also do like we could test out probably 90% of the strategy using a testnet, because you know all the applications are on testnets, and tokens on testnet have a price even though it might not be the real price, and so we can figure out a lot of strategies and procedures and policies using a testnet without having to um, without having any cost with it, right?
That's a great
And
idea.
then about the crowdsourcing idea, I remember a few weeks ago, someone was talking about potentially making an NFT collection, and that might be sort of, you know, it may be a good opportunity to have a crowdsourcing project where all the people also get something in return. So say the NFT, for example, that's probably something to consider. Uh, and then I still want to put out. I think I've said this a few times, there's groups that are dedicated to fund management, and I'm not entirely sold on the idea, but I also think that um, we should be getting in contact with them and just seeing what do they offer, and what's the strategy or whatever. Because if we can find someone with say enough reputation and a great policy, and we can just establish a good relationship, I don't see why should we be messing around with 150K if none of us is really a fund manager or something like that, because that's a lot of money. And so we may not end up with a partner, but I think it's worth trying. And that's it.
That's something I also wanted to comment when Nate was talking about like the 10K thing. Like no fund management, no one knows the future. Like all these funds management people in the crypto space are broke. Like all are broke almost. So there's no one who knows what the market will do. So we should remove that from our head. Like I personally wouldn't put my personal money on no one but my own criteria. That being
But I
said,
think
like I didn't finish. But I also wanted to talk about what Nate was talking about, the 10K thing. Like this 20% on USDC rapid ETH is something I would personally also do. And it could go good with the 10K, but then you get the 150K that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be good in the future. So that's something like I feel like the demo of the 10K. I don't know, like it's good to test the process, but I don't think we should base uh, all gains and take it for the future ones. Like the 10K thing could go even wrong. Like maybe we buy it now and then ETH dumps to $600, and I still think it's good to keep the money there. But That's my opinion. But the thing is, like, it could go down now, but then in the future go up again, and it's like no one's like there is no investment quality. Yeah, back to you, Andy.
I just want to quickly say that I mean that's true, but my point with having a partner or something like that is like, um, can we have a a person or a group of people 24/7 looking at, at at our investments? That's sort of the key. If we end up investing in, say, Ethereum or something like that, and suddenly the price drops a lot or something happens, who's going to be able to execute that transaction in a timely manner? Because the markets are all about time, and we are people with the best interest of the TC in mind, but we have, I think all of us here have other responsibilities. Um, so that's probably, besides the strategy itself, that's probably my biggest concern.
But that's risk management. Like you shouldn't have like all your money on it. Like if get a huge dip, that's something it happens, and anyone could be sleeping. So it's not like, and if you have in Binance, you could have a stop loss if you want. But where like no one is awake 24 hours, and like in bots, but they are not proved to be working as safe income. Like again, like what I'm trying to say, like no one knows the market, and what we should do is like do risk management. Like, okay, we have some amount on ETH, but this 20% USD ETH, we could have like some part. Like what we should do is like what we all do with our personal money, like have diversification and have money in different things, and then when one thing go up and the other goes down, you start using the money but the thing that go up, and then I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
everyone does his own personal things, but
And so like there's a lot of little small decisions that we need to make within the next couple of weeks. And so what I wanted to ask about in the last 10 minutes was to ask each of you, like, what area are you willing to kind of explore and tackle? Because there's a lot of fundamental problems that we're trying to face here. And if there's one thing that you could choose to explore and kind of say, hey, I'm going to just kind of explore the ins and outs and present this for next week, what topic would it be, and are you willing to do that? Because I do think figuring out how we approach this is really important, because if we're, like you said, Zepti, like, I don't think anybody knows exactly what they're doing within fund management and treasury management at the moment. And so let's take it back to first principles. So let's just say, hey, pick a topic in this area that we've talked about today and explore it, and we'll present on it next week and try to formulate some areas of this proposal that we want to start to navigate, and we can debate on those types of things that you've explored. So I don't know if we each want to take a minute on what's something that interests you and you're willing to work on. Yeah. And so I guess I'll start off, and I'll say that I think I wanted to explore more in depth about this multi-sig wallets, and how we use them to move money around to different chains, to who's going to be on the multi-sig and things of that nature. So that's the one thing that I really want to present for next week. Anybody else want to take it?
yeah, I'm interested in the same topic as
Nate,
you.
I think you just cut off a little bit.
No, I hear him well.
You hear me?
Yeah, I heard you well.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
And yeah, I wanted to say, like, I'm also interested in this topic, same as you. And then something that I would love, like, we don't end up doing, even the method we end up doing, it's like leverage trading. Like, I think that's very risky. Uh, and yeah, I would, the thing is, like, everyone would manage it how they do it with their personal finance. I would have like zero leveraging, like have diversification, safe places. Like I wouldn't put my money on Luna or stuff like that, even if it's not
Do
safe.
you want to explore safe assets? Like what assets that you think are going to be worthy of putting our money towards?
I
Would you be
mean,
willing to explore that?
I've but for me, safe, like, it doesn't have to be safe for the others, but for me, like, the safe thing is like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, ETH, have some stables, like,
Yeah,
diversify. Yeah.
I would say, like, if you can, like, explore that this week and just kind of compile a list of things that you would consider safe, and then present it next week, and then we can talk about it.
Next week, this same hour.
Yeah, for
Okay.
this
Yeah.
meeting.
I
That'd be okay.
could do that. Yeah.
All right, you want to pass it?
I'll pass it to Wendy. But I also would like to work with you in the multi-sig thing, because I think this is like very
Yeah,
crucial.
I'll be down with that.
I wrote that already, but pretty much I'm quite down to test out the apps and whatever in the tooling we may or may not end up using. Like I could if after we get probably like the assets in or whatever, like I can easily go to the testnet without no problem and do it myself.
Yeah, I think that would be really benefit. Like, I think the test net is something that we could definitely do. And if you want to explore how to use the test net and what we need to do in order to do that, I think that would be a really great start. Would you be willing to do that?
Yep.
Cool. You want to pass it?
Oh yeah, sorry. To you, Bert?
Yeah. So, oh, sorry, you said Mert or Bear?
Yeah, you.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I wouldn't really know, because I don't feel, like, confident enough to kind of like look into this kind of technical thing. But I would say I could offer like support for anything that is required, if you guys need some kind of support. And also, for me, it's really important that this initiative is just aligned into what we're doing as an organization. So yeah, I wouldn't truly know what else to say.
I mean, yeah, I think that there's a lot of like opportunity there to explore like what would be acceptable for the TEC community, and like what are the types of investments that would be aligned with the TEC mission. Like, I think, things that I can't even think of right now might exist out there and that could be explored. So I don't know if that's something you'd be willing to look into.
Yeah, maybe I can do that. That would be interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I know you're handy with spreadsheets, and we may end up like we're probably going to need one like some documents to get that going. So that's another
For
story.
sure. Yeah. Any spreadsheet, guys. I love making them. So just let me know, and I can do that.
Sounds good. How about you, Gideon?
I'm most interested in this question of risk, and what's acceptable risk for the TEC, and also, Nate, I'd like to work with you on like how we integrate this into like the decision making process for the TEC. Like how do we kind of like break this up into like some proposals and things like that?
Yeah, the format's going to be rough. Like, in terms of, we have to be, we have to be flawless in this proposal if we do this. We have to instill trust right at the beginning and maintain that trust throughout, because it's a very delicate dance with this topic. People are even not part of this meeting are going to be having their eyes on it. Like, we're going to be watched. So, yeah. Mert, how about you? You there? We may have lost Mert. But yeah, so I think this approach is really important. I think that, if we can all contribute our own little interests and keep us engaged with how we do this, we can start getting all the information that we need in order to make these proposals more comprehensive. And so we start a shared document, Gideon, on clarity, and maybe if you like throughout the week, if you get a moment, just 5 minutes, whatever the topic you were thinking about, just putting your thoughts down, saying, hey, this is what I learned, this is how I would do it. And let's explore those options, because we really got to get the ball rolling if we want to keep the momentum and making sure that we have the attention of the community, but also, we want to get something on paper and saying, hey, let's get this proposal format ready. And, if we can, the testnet would be amazing. I really do think that's the best move, because we can do a lot of modeling with that as well.
And yeah, I'm happy to help set up, like, actually there's so much that we can do with the OneNote with Clarity, and I think that it's going to be super important for us to do asynchronous progress with this. Like, if we wait to just move forward once a week, we're not going to get this done in time. So I think we have to continue to make progress over the course of the week, and I think Clarity will help with that. And NT and Bear and I are doing a lot of work with Clarity, and like trying to be able to use it to manage projects. So Nate, we can follow up separately on that, and kind of support you with like figuring out how to frame this.
Yeah, and I think, what my initial idea was to create notes, and each note would be kind of like, these are very touchy topics that could, we need to have collective, unanimous consent on how we do these things. And I would love to have people's comments in there, ideas, things that I'm not thinking of, or people, experiences you've had within your own investment strategies. Like, these are the things that are really valuable in terms of making these decisions. And so, yeah, I would say keep an eye on the notes section of the Clarity, and I think if you can, just add your thoughts, just add how you would do it. That's what I really, at the end of the day, I would want to hear from everybody, is just like, how would you run this yourself? Because I think there's a lot of ideas that can spring out of that, and we can narrow our consensus around how we approach it.
So maybe, Nate, what we can do is sometime over the next day or two, just you and I like have a side conversation to like set up like some kind of structure for notes and stuff like that, so that you can get people contributing the kinds of things that you think are most valuable. You want to do that?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else have any thoughts before we leave?
I think the other thing is we should confirm if this is like a regular meeting, and whether do we want to just keep going with this time?
I think so, unless I would prefer that we do this async, to be honest with you. I think we can have like impromptu meetings that we can call if need be. And maybe revisit. I think maybe next week we do it just because, like, just to get back on page with everyone. But let's really focus on trying to get async work going in this group.
I think like we could keep like the async work, but then we come once a week here and then sync with the rest of the team. Like, if we are doing different work streams, it's good if we synchronously at least, like every work stream is going to be advancing during the course of the week, but then this time of the week, like, we just get sure like everything is going all the work streams are going the same route, and then also
Yeah.
sharing
Yeah.
sharing progress.
And honestly, I'd like to see like even more structure. Like, so if we say next meeting we have, let's spend 15 minutes on each of the notes that we've put up, and our comments on those notes. And so let's just explore those and see if we can have these kind of incremental, this is the path forward. This is the decision we made it. Next decision, so on and so on. So, yeah, I'm down to figure this async thing out, because I do think it's extremely valuable.
Cool. Well, I've got some ideas on that we're doing with Clarity, so happy to help with that, Nate. And so we're agreed that we'll meet again next week, and then we'll decide like after that, how we want to do, like whether it's bi-weekly or whatever, or just do periodic.
Okay, that sounds great. Is everybody else okay with that? NT Bear, Mert.
Can somebody send like Bear as Sampo organizer, would you be willing to set up that next event for us?
Yeah, the thing is that, for example, for Discord, I don't have the permissions to do that. I think NT is the one.
I can fix it right now. Just give me a
Okay,
second.
perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so no problem. I can.
You can do that now. Yeah,
Thank-
normally NT is taking care of like everything that's in the calendar. NT is creating an event.
yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Gideon.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Gideon.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.